that we're not a country anymore now. We're an economic zone.
Yes, yeah.
That's all we are, an economic zone where people from all over the world come here to make money, to earn money. Some do well, some don't. And we're not a national country anymore.
Yeah.
And if they're giving any shit, we just mace them all. And then we drag them onto the boats and cuff them. We treat them as criminals. We mace them, we cuff them, we manhandle them onto the troop carrier, and we ship him off to the South Atlantic. So it was worrying that he had the balls to ask that, because we don't want blasphemy laws in this country, and he wants blasphemy laws, but we know why he wants blasphemy laws. Blasphemy laws will only be used to protect Islam.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 61 of The Mayor and I, with I, Lindsay Khan, and the Mayor, Nick Buckley. Did I say the Mayor and I then? Yeah, I think I did. Mayor and I, episode 61. It's our weekly episode where we talk about events in the week that you and I are interested in and give our particular spin on them. And Nick promotes one of his many books, which I think you'll probably do towards the end of the...
Yep.
Please, as I say, like, subscribe. Have I said that bit? I'm not quite sure. And just for our gentle viewers, I'm wearing a different shirt to last week.
So you're not called Fatty?
So I'm not called Fatty. Virtually every comment was, who's that fat bloke?
And for the first time ever, they didn't mean me! They didn't mean me for the first time ever.
And the answer to not looking fat is wearing bigger shirts, because I'm now...
Yeah. Now you know my trick.
Discovered. So we covered quite a lot in the last talk, even though there were about 4 items we talked about, and there is a lot. There's still in the news every week about things. But I think we did comment on the fact we think the tide to a certain extent is starting to turn now, and I think that's a general consensus I've seen. I saw James Lindsay, who's a critic, a cultural commentator, being interviewed by the trigonometry guys.
Yeah.
And he described woke now, which is what law we talk about, as kind of a zombie, really. The kind of the essence of it is dead, but the core of it keeps lumbering on in the institutions like the BBC, which we talked about last week, and things like that, which I thought was a very interesting kind of analogy or metaphor, or it might have been.
I'll have to watch that, because I don't
think I sent it to you.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to watch that. I quite like James Lindsay. He can get a bit deep.
Yes.
Because he's an intellectual, he's an academic, and sometimes I'm watching it going, I've had enough of everything you're talking about here now, it's just too difficult. I'd like to understand why he's come to the conclusion he thinks woke's dead.
Well, I think he thinks that it's this election in America is basically
I think once Trump's in,
and what he thinks is that what he calls the centre left have never really bought into woke anyway, and this is now the time that they'll realise if they don't come out and start telling the truth about what they really believe, the Democrats. So basically, he's saying it's now's the time, but he's saying it's very still entrenched in the institutions. Yeah. But he thinks even they will start to change when they realise that there's basically no profit. There's not a good outcome for them to carry on with it. But it's very interesting to watch, actually. I wanted to talk about first immigration, because some numbers came out this week which up to now have been estimated, and now we find out the numbers of immigrants into this country are far higher than we ever thought. So in 2023, and these numbers are quite staggering, Nick, these are now new numbers. So you and I have always gone about 700,000 and things like that. In 2023, 1.2 million people immigrated into this country.
Is that net or gross?
That's gross.
Yeah.
The net was still something like 900,000 or something ridiculous. But 1.2 million people came in and didn't leave, basically. So other people did leave, but they were mainly Europeans.
Yeah.
Now, whilst that number is staggering just by itself as a percentage of
1.2 million, and this is like the 3rd year now on the trot it's been over a million.
Yes, correct. Size of Birmingham, basically. A city the size of Birmingham.
Yeah, which is the 2nd biggest city in the country.
Yeah, came into this country in 2023 last year. I mean, it's just staggering when you think about it. Saying that, when I was in London last week, I wasn't surprised. Place was packed, and it was mainly brown and black people all around me, mainly foreign voices I could hear. I didn't hear much English spoken as I walked through the street, down Oxford Street and places like that. You could barely move.
London, when I go to London feels like, and the country's beginning to feel like this now, that we're not a country anymore now. We're an economic zone.
Yes, yeah.
That's all we are, an economic zone where people from all over the world come here to make money, to earn money. Some do well, some don't. And we're not a national country anymore.
Yeah, it had a feeling of Dubai or Singapore or places like that. These are very soulless. Yeah. I mean, Dubai is a great place if you don't pay tax there. It's got all sorts of things, but it's a very soulless place because there is no central heart to it in terms of...
And if you mess up in Dubai, you pay the price for living in the third world.
Yeah, yeah. Which again, a lot of people now are saying that's, you know, the law in Dubai is the law we need to have in this country in terms of that low tolerance, basically. There is no crime or very little crime in Dubai. So, the 1.2 million number is staggering enough. But when you hear the word immigrants, Nick, what are you thinking? Are you thinking this is somebody coming in to get a job, to work here, to earn money for, you know, themselves and maybe their family or whatever? That's always the sense I've had when I've heard the word immigrant. Is that your sense or what you think? What springs to mind, if you like? So sorry, by the way, these are legal immigrants. This is not illegal immigrants. Illegal immigrants is a completely different number.
That's exactly what I would say. Come here mainly for poor paying jobs, and they come here to earn money and send money home or make a new life here.
Yeah. Would it astound you to know that only 18% of those people came on work visas?
Yes. I knew it wouldn't be 100%, but I thought it'd be a lot higher than that.
It's 18%.
Right.
So 820,000 of that 1.2 million didn't come in with work visas. They came in as
spousal visas, student visas,
asylum,
family reconnections, whatever it's called.
So 820,000 of that 1.2 million aren't working.
Yeah. Did you know that? I think Tories tried to stop it or cut it down. Up to last year, students could bring something like 6 family members with them.
Yeah.
So you come here to study and you bring 6 people with you.
Yeah.
It was an immigration scam. A lot of these are immigration scams to get you in the country.
Yeah. I think they've stopped that now, or I believe we've been told they've stopped that.
Yeah.
But those numbers, I think whilst the numbers themselves are staggering, what is more staggering to me is the fact that hardly any of them are working.
And will be on benefits.
And do people know this? I don't think people know this, do they?
Well, I can't believe finally ONS has started releasing. I mean, what's happened to the ONS? You know, up to a couple of months ago, we never had any of these sorts of figures, and all of a sudden, over the last 3 months, ONS are giving us the figures.
That's a really good point.
We want to see.
Why is that happening?
I have no idea.
Is there somebody new running it or something?
I have no idea.
We are actually seeing, because we got the tax numbers out the other day. I saw data today, I think I sent it to you. The ONS have calculated the GDP now is actually dropping.
Yep.
Because there's more people here than they thought. They thought the GDP had actually stayed static. It's actually dropping now.
Yep.
So that once again proves the point that these migrants do not bring any financial benefit to this country. They're a drain. They're a drain.
Yeah.
So the overall GDP has stayed the same, which has all gone up slightly, but per person it's dropped.
Yeah.
So basically these migrants are not bringing any financial benefit to this country. That's the reality. But we were told those numbers a few weeks ago.
Yeah, we've seen that with how much tax they take, that benefit to take out the system compared to how much tax they're paying. You know, some migrants will be overpaying tax, but the vast majority of them aren't, just take and take and take.
The majority are low paid, and the threshold is something like 24 grand to come here. Well, that's below the average, basically.
Yeah.
If you set the threshold of earnings below the national average, the overall income of the country drops, basically. But it's been low under the Tories.
Decades.
For decades.
Yeah, so all those people then will claim, even if they're working, they'll still claim housing benefit, council tax benefit, still using the NHS, still sending their kids to schools, and someone will be on tax credits. And it's like, why have we imported this person into the country?
Yeah. 86% of that 1.2 million were non-EU nationals. So that means they came from Africa, India, Pakistan, some from China. Now, of those countries, Africa, India, all the Asian areas, these people are net drain on the country. That's on average, their income generation is lower. The Chinese are actually above that level, or the Hong Kong Chinese actually are net contributors to us. The other ones are net drain. So 86% of those people that came, on average, will be a net drain on the country.
And the ironic part of this is we wanted Brexit to leave the EU so we could reduce migrants from Europe and around the world. And what happened? We got no more migrants from Europe and was flooded from around the world. We got the worst of both worlds. And that was because Boris Johnson and the Tories failed to deliver Brexit.
Well, you wonder, but even that doesn't make sense, does it? Because, you can understand them failing to deliver Brexit, but then why did they allow these numbers to increase like they have done?
My understanding from what I read is Boris Johnson opened the floodgates because all he cared about was the economy. And what's worked in the past is invite loads of migrants in and your GDP goes up. And it's a kickstart to the economy. Lots of cheap labour. Bring it in. Businesses will flourish. And he did it on purpose.
The migration in 2023 of 1.2 million exceeds, this is 1 year. So this 1 year of 2023, the 1.2 million exceeds the entire decade of the 1980s and the early 90s. So it's all the 1980s and most of the early 90s. Less people came in over that entire period of time.
Which is shocking, considering if you ask many people in the 80s and 90s what you think of immigration, they would have told you it's too high. The British people have always thought it was too high, even when it was a fraction of what it is now. And every government has just increased it and increased it and increased it because of the economic value. They saw a short-term economic value. It made the books look good, the Treasury look good for their 4 years in office. But really, it was, like I said before, it was a Ponzi scheme. Building up debt, bringing in people. The stats look great, but we're going bankrupt.
What is staggering to me is these numbers. I mean, in America, they've got a problem, haven't they? They've said that, is it like 10 million people come over the border since...
In the 4 years,
In the 4 years. Now, that is a massive unmanned border, isn't it, that runs all across from Mexico. So you can understand America having a problem there, because they've got this massive continent, or half continent below them, full of people.
People walk across.
Walk across. So in 4 years they've got 10 million, but we've managed in 4 years to get about 4 or 5 million, haven't we? So even though we're an island, even though we're supposed to have border laws, we've let half the number of people in that America, which is a vast country with a vast border, is let in illegally, basically. So they've let in. So you're comparing legal and illegal there. Numbers. So I think America would have let in a lot more legally as well of the 10 million that's come illegally. But the numbers still shocking, considering we're a fraction of the size of America. Exactly. And we've got a moat around our country. Exactly. We have a natural defence, don't we?
Lots of castles could not be breached because of the moat. Our channel stopped Napoleon, stopped the Spanish Armada, stopped Hitler, but we can't stop 50 Afghans on a boat. And that's because there's no will to stop them. That's why they can be stopped. There's no will. Well,
I had an interesting conversation with somebody a friend of ours, but both I think now. We were at the football together, and we know he has an investment in a certain thing that benefits from migrant. Yes. So I was having a heated debate. He got very drunk on Saturday night, Friday night. I was having a heated debate with him about the channel, and I said, if I was in charge tomorrow, I'd stop the boats immediately. I'd stop all migration. I think you and I have talked about this as a strategy. I'd stop all migration instantly. Any applications
cancelled.
Stop. Everybody go home who's got an application in. And I would stop the boats immediately. He said, how would you stop the boats? I said, I get the Royal Navy in the channel, and then any boats leaving France, I'd make them turn around. And he said, "Oh, you can't do that." I said, "No, I can do that."
No.
And he said, "No, you can't, international law."
No.
And I said, "Who's going to stop me?"
No.
I said, "You can talk about international law. Who's going to stop me turning those boats around?" Who was right in that conversation, Nick? In your opinion, your esteemed?
My understanding is you can turn the boats back.
Yeah.
Legally.
Yeah.
Of course you can.
Yeah.
You don't. It's not international law that you can sail into someone's country anytime you want.
I know. That's
no one has that right.
Yes, I know.
I think we'll have the right to shoot them if we wanted to.
Oh, really?
I would imagine so.
Yeah.
No, you can turn the boats back. Some of them won't turn back.
What do you do about the ones that don't turn back? It's a practical example, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe our listeners want to know how when we seize power, we're going to do this.
So what I would do is I'd have Royal Navy boats stationed in the channel, and I would commandeer a huge disused cruise ship, or a troop carrying ship.
Yeah.
And we would intercept a boat, so the Royal Navy destroyers would intercept boats, and we'd say to people, you go back to France or we're going to arrest you. And to begin with, they'll go, I'm not going back. Right, you've all arrested now. We transfer them on to the troop carrying ship. They all get berthed, and then once we've got a couple of hundred on there, that then sails to the Ascension Islands in the South Atlantic.
Are they under British control?
Yes, we own them. So we would dump them there in tents, and then they would have a choice over a certain amount of time. Is we'll fly you home from here.
Yeah.
But they have to suffer.
Feed them though.
Yeah, we'd feed them and would make. But they couldn't go back next day. They'd be here at least 6 months because they're now criminals. We've now convicted them. You do 6 months on Ascension Island. If you just put them there for a day and fly them home, I'll start again. So immediately that sends a signal to everybody else in France. I'm likely to get caught. I never set foot on England, and I go straight to the Ascension Islands, and it's 6 months, 8 months of my life gone, and then they fly me home if I'm lucky. And if they don't tell us where they live, we then have a deal with Rwanda where we fly them to Rwanda and dump them with nothing. No hotel accommodation, we just dump them. Within a fortnight, there's no more boats coming across.
I think you're right. Yeah. That's the way to do it, isn't it?
Yeah.
So there's nothing to stop us under whatever international law is from turning the boats around or picking them up and chucking them in a...
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So, because my preferred thing would be send them back to France, but you actually think it's better to actually put them on a boat and stay.
Well, we're trying to get them back to France.
Right.
What we need to avoid is arguments, confrontation in the middle of the channel and people drowning.
Yeah.
So we have to avoid that.
Yeah.
But we would just need to be tougher. We just need to be tougher, and we'd arm our sailors with mace. And if they're given any shit, we just mace them all. And then we drag them onto the boats and cuff them. We treat them as criminals. We mace them, we cuff them, we manhandle them onto the troop carrier, and we ship them off to the South Atlantic.
What if the commander of the naval ship happened to be an incompetent lesbian who refused to do this?
Well, she automatically would turn the ship into a submarine because she'd sink it like the one in New Zealand.
So
before we move on to that, it's a good question. What happens when the chief of staff or chief of the army and navy go, we ain't doing that?
Yes.
It's like, well, you're sacked. Next.
So you just sack him?
Sack him.
Yeah.
Anyone doesn't do anything, that's what Trump's going to do. You're sacked.
Yeah.
Bring your number 2 in. Right. This is what I want you to do. Are you going to do it? Sacked. Out. Bring the 3rd one in until you find someone who's going to follow the lead of the elected politicians.
I don't think you'd have to go very far down the chain.
No.
I think a lot of people will want to do this.
The second in command will do it.
Yeah.
I know. The first one would have done it if he believed you were going to sack him, but he didn't believe you were going to sack him.
So he thought he'd virtue signal by saying, no, I'm not going to do it.
Yes, and he thought he'd get away with that. So then you have to sack him to send the message to everything. The number 2 walks in and goes, yeah, I'll take that 50 grand payback, thank you.
The example I'm talking about, I'm kind of skipping ahead here because this is the DI section. Yvonne Gray.
Yeah, I remember the story.
So she was, I think this is New Zealand if I'm getting it right now.
Yeah, New Zealand Navy.
New Zealand Navy. She's a British lesbian.
Yeah.
and she was put in command of a. She'd never been in command of a large boat before, of a £60 million Navy ship.
Yeah.
Which subsequently then crashed into a rock.
Yeah.
So everybody was.
And sank.
And sank, yeah. Ruined. It's lost 60 million quid worth. So everybody.
It's the first boat New Zealand have lost since the Second World War. She's more dangerous than the Japanese.
Well, no, because now you're being a homophobic misogynist. So people like you and me, Nick, were called homophobic misogynists for suggesting that she was an underqualified, incompetent, only hired because she was a lesbian. So this is lesbian, basically. So you and I were saying, here we are, dear. And they were going, no, it's other reasons, something else happened. Anyway, they've done a very thorough investigation, and they've determined that it is a direct result of her incompetence. And what she did was left the autopilot on. So when you get on a ship, you put the autopilot on. So it goes in that.
Sailed in the box.
Yeah, and then when you get close to land, you flick the autopilot off, and then you manually steering. I know it sounds like a difficult concept. It's stuff. Anyway, she left the autopilot on, and of course it headed for the rocks, and they were flicking all sorts of things and doing all this, whatever. You can imagine the hilarity of what was happening on the bridge at that point.
I think it's more serious than that, because having captain those sorts of ships have protocols.
Yes.
It's not just about her.
Yeah.
Where's her second in command? There should be always someone almost at her level, always on the bridge. There's other staff in there watching out for stuff, would raise with her. This is more than just than just her putting it on and forgetting about it. It's I don't know how it happened.
Or maybe the second in command was a tranny.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So
putting his skirts on.
Or her and all her command were having lunch. It was a Friday afternoon prosecco lunch for all the lesers. And that's why it crashed. I don't know, but this is a very difficult thing to do. Might have to cut that bit out.
So they called us homophobic misogynists for suggesting she was an underqualified, incompetent, and it has turned out she was only hired because she was a lesbian. So she was an underqualified, incompetent.
There was a video going on last week from TUI, which is a holiday company with airplanes, and they were announcing to all their passengers, was it a German airport? Welcome on board. This is TUI's first ever all black flight crew. All the captains and the co-captain and are all black and and it's Black History Month this month and I would have been shitting myself. I would have been crapping myself.
Why?
The fact that they forced all these people together to fly a plane so they can have some virtue signalling points. How many of these pilots weren't that good but got the job because this is what DI does. It brings incompetence into the workplace, and even for the black or brown or gay people who are not incompetent, it puts a seed of doubt into everybody else that they are incompetent.
Because maybe the captain was a very highly qualified black
he may have been.
Then they said, right, well, you need a co-pilot. I need a good and it's like, right, have we got any black co-pilots? And there's Fred there, who's a black. How many flights have you done, Fred? I've only done one. But you're black. You get in there. So then the captain's like, hang on a minute, Fred. What? How many? Like, I've only done one. Have you ever flown this particular? No, I've never done.
Not this, but I used to be a mini captain on a New Zealand plane. But I had to change my career.
No, I hadn't thought about it. I mean, again, just because I'm still so indoctrinated, I was thinking that's a bit racist saying that. But actually, the fact they had to find black people means they potentially would have had to compromise what they were doing, weren't they?
It was the fact they told everybody.
The people who were getting on the plane,
some looked worried. That's what the comments are about. Some looked worried. If I'd got on a plane,
well, it's a good question though. Would you have got on the plane then if somebody had announced that? It's a good question, isn't it?
I probably would have done, only because I had somewhere to go and I wouldn't get my money back and stuff like that. But if I got on a plane and I just accidentally notice that the captain and co-captain are black, or the staff are black, it wouldn't bother me at all. But to be told, this is so special, then it's like, ooh, it's like if I was in Africa and I got on a plane in Africa, it wouldn't surprise me if the captain and co-captain and all the staff all were black. But it's the fact they made such a big deal of it made me think they probably pushed all these people together to get virtue signalling points, and they had to do it now because Black History Month was ending.
Yeah, it's an interesting quiz, isn't it? Really, what plane would you get on? Would I get on a plane staffed with only black people? Yes, probably. Would I get on a plane staffed only by trannies? No way. No way, because trannies in my mind are mentally ill. Yeah. So I wouldn't want to get on a plane full of trannies.
That's a good point.
Would you get on a plane staffed only by lesbians?
Not to New Zealand. Not to. They've just ruined it for me now. Not to New Zealand.
Yeah.
But again, how would you know?
No, if they were announcing it.
If they're announcing it, I would just be as worried as I was with the old black crew.
Yes.
Because.
But I'd be more worried with the old tranny crew.
I get that because
furry crew.
Yeah, because they're mentally ill.
Yes.
And we do have issues with mental pilots crashing into mountains and disappearing in oceans and stuff like that. So that is a real concern. But I wouldn't have an issue with any of those things unless it was announced that it was made special.
Right. Okay.
Because that makes me think this is diversity now, and diversity to me means incompetence.
What about a crew of people over 70? So we're not being ageist.
Again, all would depend if it was announced. To celebrate Old People's Month, we've now got this crew full of old people. If you look behind you, you will see Dorothy with the drinks. But, you know, then I'd be worried.
The service will be very... It's really... I've gone off the immigration thing. We're going to get back to it. Yeah, so in tandem with the immigration thing, there was an episode of Question Time. I don't know if you saw it.
I've not watched Question Time in 20 years.
I don't watch it either, but occasionally you get clips.
Yeah.
And Lisa Nandy.
I've seen the clip. Yeah, you're right.
Who is another grotesque. I don't think she's got a cabinet role at the moment.
Yeah, she is. She's the Minister for Culture and Young People, something like that.
Minister for Women with Cocks. She's the one who said trans women are women and women could have a penis. And
trans women should be sent to female prisons.
That was it.
Yeah.
She's a nutter, isn't she?
Yeah.
She's on this, and it was interesting because when you watch it, Nick, I think like me will think, oh no, because she trotted out the usual platitudes, and she said, I'm from Manchester, and you know, I grew up in a community where, you know, it was we had immigration, and the community was bolstered and enriched by immigrants. And of course, nobody said anything round the table. But in fact, what somebody should have said is, how have immigrants enriched our society?
Yeah. Give me an example.
Yes.
Give me one or two examples how immigration has enriched this country.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, Fiona Bruce, she can have my time.
Yeah.
She can have my time because I just want the answers to this.
Yeah. But none of the Ponces around the table said anything. But it looked very old when she said it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of, I think people are wise to this crap now, aren't they? When they talk about immigrants enriching.
Well, it's got that bad now. People can look around their communities and see no benefits.
Yes.
And so when people say it now, they've got their own ears and eyes to know this is bollocks.
Yeah.
I see no enrichment.
And I think also, you know, information, data's coming out now show that they are not enriching our communities. In many ways, they are destroying our communities and increasing the danger in our communities. Yeah. So I think this week as well, I think the Milan mayor said 65% of crimes in Milan are carried out by foreigners.
Yeah.
And foreigners represent 20% of the population of Milan. I mean, that is a staggering statistics. In Paris, 69% of violent crimes on public transport are carried out by foreign nationals. And Africans in Paris are responsible for 52% of those violent crimes.
Yep.
But they only represent, guess how much of the population?
4%?
3.2%. I mean, those statistics are staggering, aren't they? So, what somebody should say to Lise and Nandy, imbeciles who spout out these platitudes, can you tell us exactly how they are enriching our communities?
Yep. And I should give you more platitudes. She'd mention things like food. Look at all the restaurants. On a Friday night when you've been out with your friends, you want a curry, you wouldn't have that. Oh yeah, so a recipe. So that's what you're saying. Immigrants bring a recipe. That's all you're saying.
Yeah.
They would come out with that sort of rubbish.
Or the corner shop.
Yeah.
A little corner shop where I can go and get a samosa or whatever it
Yeah.
might be. Yeah.
And don't forget, it was Napoleon who called England a country of corner shops.
Yes.
So we had corner shops.
Corner shops.
Yeah.
We also had corner shop. Remember open all hours?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Asian community took over the corner shops because they were willing to work longer hours.
Yeah.
So my corner shop when I was a kid used to shut for lunch.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine shops would shut for lunch.
Yeah.
But the Asian community had a better work ethic, would work longer hours, and it would be open from 7 in the morning to 11 at night.
Yeah.
And that's how they made their money. So it was taken over by them. They didn't create corner shops.
Yeah.
It's all that rubbish she would just repeat. And what I'd say to her is, if immigration is so wonderful and so beneficial, why are the countries where these people come from failing states? So if Pakistani people are so wonderful, why is Pakistan with 120 million of them third world and a failing state?
Yeah.
It's because the only people who are enriched through immigration are the migrants who are enriched by coming to a first world country, by mixing in a much superior culture, by improving their living standards and their quality of life and getting education and getting free healthcare. They're enriched. And don't forget, Lisa and Nandy's dad's an immigrant.
Yeah.
So she probably means...
She's Anglo-Indian, she's like me. She's Anglo-Indian, yeah.
So she probably is thinking it's been enriching. Well, her dad got enriched. Of course he did. He did really well here.
Yeah.
Became a professor at a university, set up the Runnymede Trust, which is a woke charity. So yeah, he's done well here. But who else has done well here?
Yeah. And I think we must be reaching the point, surely we are now, when an imbecile like Lisa and Andy says this on TV, somebody must challenge you. We've got to be getting close now.
Yeah, but not on the BBC.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
Oh, no, again, it depends who's on there. I mean, if someone like Nigel Farage was on there,
yeah.
Or, we do get people every now and again.
But I don't think Nigel Farage so far has ever said anything like, tell me how because I think it's been too explosive.
Yeah. He's playing extremely self. I wish he'd take a leaf out of Trump's book and go full Trump. But he isn't. He's just, I want to be just slightly better than the Tories. That's my aim. Slightly better than the Tories.
Yeah.
And we don't want a new version of the Tories. We want something better.
We need somebody. I mean, I think if you'd have been on that show, would you have said that?
Oh, absolutely.
This is what I mean. We need people like you on these programmes now, don't we? Asking these questions, challenging these imbeciles when they say these stupid things. But when she said it, I just thought, oh, this is so tired. This is so tired when they just spout this crap. And they spout it to each other, don't they?
And they still get away with it on audiences like the BBC. That's a perfect answer for the BBC.
Yeah. And it's an interesting question. The guy I was chatting to was talking about the votes.
Yeah.
What he said to me, and I think we've kind of just covered it here. He said we no longer have conviction politicians.
No, we don't. We have career politicians.
Yeah.
It's all about my career.
Yeah.
So what policies would you like? Do you like these? No, it's okay. I've got some more policies here.
Yeah.
Most politicians I've met, not most of them, some of the politicians I've met, I've known for a fact they don't agree with the policies they're talking about. They've just been told to talk about it because that's our policies. Because they don't care about policies. It's all about the next election. It's all about keeping their job. Hence why we call them career politicians. If you're working in Asda, you're not trying to get sacked from Asda. You're trying to be promoted at Asda.
Correct.
If your bosses say do this, you might not agree with it, but you do it because you're being paid to do it.
Yeah.
That's what our politicians have become.
That's an interesting
We haven't got politicians now who go, yeah, no, another leader has said this, but I don't agree with this. I would do it this way.
Yeah. Well, an example, and this is somebody who I don't agree with his policies, an example of a conviction politician is Jeremy Corbyn.
Absolutely.
Now, you and I probably don't agree with a lot of his policies, his particular views on Palestine, all that sort of stuff and whatever. But to be fair to him, he's never deviated from his beliefs, has he? Oh, and that's why he did so badly, and that's why he was kicked out. Although he did get more votes, I think, than Starmer.
Yeah.
He got voted. But the reason he didn't win is because most people didn't agree with his views. But he didn't retrench on them at any point, did he?
No. I don't like many of his views. I don't think I'd like him as a person if I met him. But you're right, I had respect for him because whatever he said, to a certain extent, I knew he meant it and he agreed with it. And I thought his ideas were crazy. But he was honest. He told you, I'm doing this. Almost everybody, the last person like that was Thatcher. Who didn't care what other people thought. This is what I'm doing. If you don't like it, vote me out.
Yeah.
But I'm not for changing.
Yeah.
And we don't have anyone with a backbone like that now.
Who has been a conviction politician since Thatcher then? Was Tony Blair or was he a career politician as well? Maybe Tony Blair a little bit. I don't know. But I think you're right. Jeremy Corbyn, and I mean, it's sad that these are the only examples we can talk about.
I don't think Tony Blair was a conviction politician.
Tony Benn was, but he was never in power.
Tony Benn was. Tony Blair wasn't. He was a successful politician.
Yeah.
Introduced us to spin and all that sort of stuff. That's how he ruled the country, and he span everything.
Yeah.
He had made it fit his agenda, and he had an agenda. He was more than just wanting to be the money and elected, because he knew he'd make more money once he left politics, which he did. But conviction politicians, it's like, who have you seen that resigns over a matter of principle? None. We talked about the guy from Thatcher's cabinet about the Westland helicopters.
Michael Heseltine.
He resigned over a matter of principle.
There have been quite a few during those times.
Yeah.
Louise Haig, have I got her name right?
I think so.
She was the Transport Secretary.
She had a side hustle as well. If you ever wanted a phone, speak to her.
So, can you tell our gentle listeners what happened to her and why she had to resign? Because I've kind of seen snatches of it. I'm not sure I have the whole story, but I think I have the whole story. I'm
quite surprised she resigned. I really am. So my understanding is 10 years ago, she had a handbag stolen, reported it to the police, said her work's phone was in it, and they reported that stolen, and then it turns out it wasn't stolen, it was at home.
She wasn't, presumably she was working in a job then, she wasn't
I think so. I think she was working for a bank or something, an insurance company. That's my understanding. It's like, well, that doesn't make sense to me. You go home, you see your phone, and then you would tell the police, oh, forget that. No, my phone was at home, I didn't know. The police are not going out of their way looking at lists and then investigating, was that phone really in that bag? So what happened after that, we don't know. But she either gave it someone or she sold it, I don't know. But the police realised then that was a false account of that phone, and she was complicit in hiding that from the police. So they prosecuted her. She pled guilty and received a fine.
Oh, so she's got a criminal record?
Yes.
Right.
For fraud.
So what was she who was she trying to defraud and why? Was she trying to...
From what I've read in between the lines, other people have commented, she wanted a new phone from work. So she knew that if she got rid of that, and she's got a police number now, she'd get a new phone at work. I did it myself at the council. I remember having a BlackBerry, and a new BlackBerry came out. So I took a screwdriver to the back of my BlackBerry, broke it, and went in work. They couldn't fix it, so they bought me a new one. So these things happen.
I don't think you should have admitted that on camera. No, they don't happen. I don't do things like that.
But it's only your council tax money. It wasn't real money.
Oh, yeah. That's where my tax money goes. People like you doing that.
So
basically she was a fraudster.
Yes.
She pretended she'd had a phone stolen so she could get some financial benefit,
yeah.
or the benefit from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, 10 years later, she's appointed to the cabinet. Starmer would know she's got a criminal record.
Yes, you would hope so.
Yeah, because you checked out all the time.
Yeah.
You know, going into government, you want to make sure that whoever you appoint isn't got a conviction for paedophilia. You know all this years in advance when they're moving up the chain of command. So he knew it, appointed her, and then it all came out. What he should have said was, yes, that's correct, but she's caught, punished. It was 10 years ago. She's a different person now. We have something in this country called rehabilitation. We don't continually punish people for a crime they've already been punished for. We don't punish her twice. There's a whole argument for that.
Yeah, but she's a cabinet minister.
Whole argument for that. But he didn't.
I don't think he knew.
He may not have known, you know, if it's incompetent, but she resigned, and what that means is she was told to go.
You can't have a cabinet minister with a criminal record, Nick. It's unacceptable. As you're going to get one now with your Blackberry situation. Somebody sent a note to me on this saying we can't vet our illegal immigrants. We can't vet our legal or our illegal immigrants, and we can't vet cabinet ministers either. We can't, can we? Anybody can get into any position because nobody checks anymore.
I'm sure she was checked. I just don't think anyone cared or anyone saw it was an issue.
The new Transport Secretary is Heidi Alexander. Guess who she used to work for?
I don't know, but I know that she's got something to do with net zero and...
Yeah, she was the Deputy London Mayor.
Oh, right.
So she was the architect of ULEZ and 20 miles
Right.
an hour zone.
Right.
So more of the same.
Yeah.
But probably the most chilling thing that happened last week is during Prime Minister's Questions time on November the 27th, Labour MP Tahir Ali. Are you aware of what happened with him?
Blasphemy laws.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, why was that? I mean, anybody can propose blasphemy laws. Why was it particularly concerning about what happened?
He was allowed to ask a question because Labour are still hunting for Muslim votes. Because...
Well, presumably you can ask the question anyway, can't you?
Oh, yeah, they get... Some not vetted by the government, vetted by the Speaker of the House. So someone vets them.
Speaker of the House is a Labour.
Yeah. What was concerning, two things were concerning. The fact that he asked a question about, you know, we shouldn't allow people to desecrate holy books and stuff like that, or criticise.
He made a particular reference, didn't he, to which relates only to Islam, I think. It was something about the prophets or something like that.
I think he mentions, my understanding was he mentioned the prophets of Abraham.
That's it, yes.
Which is the three religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So he included them because he knew what was going. He knew what was going to be the next day headlines. So it was worrying that he had the balls to ask that, because we don't want blasphemy laws in this country, and he wants blasphemy laws, but we know why he wants blasphemy laws. Blasphemy laws will only be used to protect Islam.
Yes.
And the scary part was Keir Starmer's answer was a bit wishy-washy, which gave you the impression, yeah, I agree with you, and we need to protect.
Yeah.
That, yeah, but it was a very wishy-washy answer.
Yeah. So that's paving the way then for blasphemy laws. Is that what we're now thinking?
Potentially, and it depends how much Labour want or rely on the Muslim vote coming up to the next election, if we get it or not. If we can get assisted dying in a couple of weeks, then blasphemy laws, a couple of weeks.
That's what I mean. It's kind of, that's the bit that's worrying, isn't it? Well, you know, assisted dying was raised, what, a month ago?
Yeah.
It's law.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks later, Muslim,
yeah.
Islam blasphemy laws, basically. Yeah. I want to move on to something that happened a couple of weeks ago, which was COP29.
Yep.
And just the ramifications of this for the UK, because I don't know if most people know, but most of the major emitters did not attend this year's COP29. So China, India didn't attend, Argentina didn't attend. It's highly likely America's going to pull out as well.
100% they're going to pull out.
But despite this, Starmer said he was looking to cut from current emissions. He's looking to cut them by 81% by 2035.
Yeah, pie in the sky. Pie in the sky. I'm not too worried about this anymore now, because it's going to get slightly worse, and then things are going to get a lot worse, and it'll all end. So if we start getting power outages, blackouts, which I remember from the 70s, that will bring him down. The farmers strike, closing London, not producing food on purpose, so the shelves go empty, that'll bring him down. And then the big one now will be businesses going out of business. Volkswagen in Germany are closing a factory. That's nearly 200,000 people out of work, I believe.
200,000?
Yeah.
In one factory? That's a big factory.
Yeah, maybe I've got that number.
Unless it's a group of factories across the country.
Forget that number.
It's a big organisation.
They've told staff now, because they're going, the Volkswagen staff now are going on strike. Sorry, it was 200,000 people who were going on strike. And that's because they're telling their staff now there's going to be job losses and wage cuts because of the green agenda.
It's because of the EV vehicles.
Petrol
vehicles. I mean, the countries that have pulled out, which are quite big countries, they won't be contributing either to what COP29 promised the poorer countries. And do you know how much that is per year?
200 billion.
300 billion.
300 billion.
So, on the basis we're one of the bigger GDP countries that attended that, we'll be shouldering that burden as well, won't we? Because America's not going to be doing it. Argentina's not. China and India aren't going to be doing it. So, Starmer and
we won't be doing it either, to be honest.
But Starmer and what's-his-face, Miliband, presented themselves as some sort of evangelical leaders of this new religion at this. So, he's committed to this 81% thing. He's committed to paying that money over as well. It's just a scandal. But I think what was more interesting, which was kind of hidden in the small print last week, have you heard of FIRE? F-I-R-E.
No.
I don't know what it stands for.
No.
But it's basically a insane organisation advising the government on what they need to do to reduce the emissions by 2050 to zero. So the overriding plan here is zero emissions. Imagine that, no emissions in this country
impossible
by 2050. So this organisation has been given £5 million. You can imagine that'll fund a whole bunch of DEI, woke, climate change freaks in there. And this is what they are promising. Only 3 airports left operating by 2030. That's only 5 years ago. No airports by 2050.
Right.
No petrol or diesel cars by 2030. Another 5 years. By 2050, road use to 60% of what it is today. Are you imagining this? Food, heating and energy restricted to 60% of today's levels by 2050. Beef and lamb not on British menus by 2050. So no more beef and lamb because cows fart and lamb, they're called problems, basically. So that's what this government-funded organisation are proposing needs to be done. How does that sound to you?
Again, pie in the sky, not a chance in hell any of that's going to happen. Things will collapse before that, and the government will fall before any of that. We've always had people in society who would wear sandwich boards crying, "The end is nigh." And that's what this agenda is about. If we don't do this, the world is going to end. Every religion over thousands of years have had people like this. It's all been documented. But the world changes next year when Trump comes into office, because once Trump's in office and he does everything he says he's going to do, and we watch their economy rocket, and we see standard of living's increasing, and we see taxes being reduced. Elon Musk now is talking, not in the first term, but in the next term, they're looking at ending income tax in America.
Bloody hell.
That no one will pay income tax.
Bloody hell.
I mean, that's, talk about new ideas.
Yeah.
So once we see America pulling out of the COP and the Paris Climate Agreement and drilling and bringing back fracking, and things will change here, because it's like, we want some of that.
I've told you I quite fancy the idea of living in America now, didn't I?
You said you were thinking of maybe not living here. You didn't say where.
Texas.
Right.
Republican state.
Yep.
Nice weather. Low taxes
Yep.
already.
Yeah.
I mean, you must consider it, mustn't one? I know you wouldn't, but it's attractive, isn't it?
It's, I
it's going to get more attractive as we're looking across the pond.
Yeah.
And this dystopian.
Yeah.
London was such a shithole at the weekend. You know, this dystopian country we're living in now. It's got to be attractive, hasn't it?
I'm sure it is to many people.
So, 10 years ago, fossil fuels represented 82% of all energy consumption.
Yeah.
And we've spent 3.8, not billion, 3.8 trillion dollars on renewables since, to try and reduce that 82%. Guess what it is now?
Well, they have reduced it.
They have reduced it.
So let's give them some credit where credit's due.
Yes, yeah.
And they reduced it by a whole 1%.
So despite spending $3.8 trillion, which is a phenomenal amount of money on renewables, we've only managed to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels by 1%.
Yeah. That's why I know all these targets are just pie in the sky.
Yes, they are just pie in the sky. There's a guy who set up Greenpeace. I'm trying to remember his name now. Apologies. Dr. Patrick Moore, founder of Greenpeace.
Yeah.
And what he said is, if we ban fossil fuels, he said half the population will die in a very short time.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
I've seen some of his videos. He's a clever guy.
I've not seen him.
Yeah, I've seen some of his videos.
But he's a founder of Greenpeace. He's not a kind of right-wing fascist, is he?
No.
He's a reasonable guy.
He talks about how the green agenda is a climate scam. It's just a scam. He admits it. It's a scam.
Yeah.
Even
though he was the founder of Greenpeace.
Yeah, but he said Greenpeace wasn't about climate change.
Greenpeace was about the whales originally, wasn't it?
All sorts of things. He said there were real problems that we had to solve. We didn't want these dying out, and we didn't want the rainforests disappearing. He goes, these were proper problems that we wanted to solve. He said, but then it took a turn into craziness.
So it's like the gay thing, isn't it? You know, we want to stop gays being prejudiced against. So we'll set up Stonewall and do it, and then you get there and you're like, what the hell do we do now?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do we keep our fat salaries, basically?
Yeah.
And that's happened at Greenpeace. Yeah. So these crazy targets, this craziness here, I think you're right. I think what's going to happen now is, as we try and achieve these things, people are going to realise this insanity. I was in Scotland the other day. I think I told you I went to a dinner somewhere in Scotland, and on the way back, as you drive through the Scottish Highlands, or whatever it was, we were driving on the it's what the M6 becomes, I can't remember what it is now. There's a beautiful section peppered with these great big wind turbines. And they're actually ugly. They actually spoil the landscape. They're not beautiful at all. And we're already doing it, aren't we? We're creating these horrible things that will have little or no benefit to us. That's what I'm saying. My nervousness is when we take over, when we finally get power in a couple of years' time, there's a hell of a lot to undo, isn't there?
There is. I mean, those wind turbines, what people don't understand is, first of all, it's all concrete and iron.
Yeah.
None of it is recyclable.
Yeah.
They all get buried. The lifespan is only 20 years.
Yeah.
And to spin the blades, it's gas injected. They're not very green at all.
It's it's a massive scam. It's a massive. I mean, Trump calls the climate hoax, and it is a massive hoax. I mean,
have you seen?
We're paying for it.
Have you seen a film? You've got to watch this. It's on YouTube. You can watch it for free. It's called Planet of the Humans.
No.
It's very good documentary all about the green agenda in America, about what a scam it is, really? About who's making the money, what works, what doesn't work. And the bit I remember, there's a brand new electric car being shown to the press, and the woman who's presenting it goes, fully electric, uses, because it's electric, no emissions. How does it charge? Oh yeah, you plug it in. And how does electricity, how's that made? Oh, from the national grid. And what's that made up of? Oh, I don't know. Well, let me tell you. It's made up of 80% coal burning. So it's just, the whole thing's a con and a scam.
It is. That energy's got to come from somewhere that comes out your plug. People think it's nice and clean when it comes out of the plug. It starts that way, but it isn't.
And the new thing they've started doing now is, it's produced by biomass. All right, biomass. Yeah, trees.
Yes.
That's what they mean. Trees.
Biomass. It's just bollocks, isn't it? I think part of what Starmer's looking at as well is, because obviously we've not punished the farmers enough, have we?
No.
We're taking 500 million off them. I can't remember what it.
Yeah, 500 million and giving 500 million to foreign farmers.
Well, we're now going to start taxing agricultural fertiliser because it's harmful to the environment, and that's going to add another 150 million pounds to farmers' costs because it's 50 to 75 quid a tonne.
And that's exactly what brought down the Sri Lankan government.
Correct.
It was the fertiliser tax on it. They couldn't afford to buy it. They produced less food. The people got hungry. Revolution came.
Yeah. And I think if nothing else, the revolution will come through this because people are going to start starving soon. They're not going to have heating. They're not going to have electricity. They're not going to have food.
Yeah.
And I think when that starts happening, and we're looking across the pond at America thriving, I think that is, if anything, that's good. If they carry on with this insanity,
I agree.
That's what's going to happen. I think one of the more interesting stats on that was the rich care more about climate change than the poor. Something like the ratio, and the poor meaning, I don't mean the poor, but I mean people with lower incomes. 67% of the rich care about climate change. Only 39% of the poor do.
And that's because this is one of those luxury beliefs.
Yeah.
That the richer you are, the less this affects you. Because you can afford an extra couple of pence on petrol. You can afford to have to buy an electric car. You can afford the cost that it takes to be virtuous and signal that you're virtuous. Where the poorer you are, every extra penny comes out of your smaller wage, and you feel that a lot more than you do when you're well off. So don't surprise me at all. And we see this across the world. Richer countries care more about the environment than poorer countries. So that makes sense. If you're in Africa, what time have you got to care about the monkeys in the trees or the state of the land? You're too busy trying to make sure your children aren't starving and dying of some disease. So the richer you become, the more then you start looking out for the environment where you live, because you've got more time to care about that.
I want to move on to something we were talking in the last episode about packies and the use of the word packy, and my belief now, I don't know if you're echoing it, that I'm not worried about things like that anymore, but there's a case that's come to our attention, and again it's our glorious BBC involved in it, and it's a guy called Greg Wallace. Are you aware of this gentleman? I
wasn't up to a couple of days ago, but I am now.
So I'm very aware of him because I used to watch MasterChef all the time. And he's basically the host of MasterChef, which is a very popular program on the BBC. I don't watch it anymore because I have no BBC license, as you know, and I'm not allowed to watch BBC. So, and nor would I.
Yes.
Just for the benefit of our any Nazi viewers out there, those guys that drive around in them. So this guy, there's 13 complaints being levelled against him, and what he's been accused of, firstly, was there was an Asian contestant. There's a MasterChef. If you don't know, you don't know.
I'm aware of the show.
People, amateur people, sometimes professional chefs come on and they compete cooking dishes. Greg Wallace and somebody like the guy who runs the Gavroche, he's not running it anymore.
Yeah.
I've forgotten his name now. They taste these foods and then rate them, and they get, and then somebody goes. It's one of those realities.
It's like the Bake Off.
Yeah, like the Bake Off. It's exactly the same as the Bake Off. Yeah, Michel Roux is the word I was looking for. So apparently there were complaints because when the Asian contestant walked off, he would say things like "me so horny," right, or "me sucky sucky," basically, which is apparently what Thai prostitutes will say when.
I wouldn't know. But you seem to know what Thai prostitutes talk about.
Because the last conversation we had about it off the record, you were telling me about your experience.
We have no conversations off the record.
Now, there's been 13 complaints.
Yep.
Staff at the BBC are threatening to go on strike, and you may have to, punish me for this. But they may have to punish me for this because I really can't see what the problem is.
Yep, two things for this. The first thing is, if this is all true, then he's a stupid man for doing this while working at the BBC. And I know he's technically not working for the BBC, it's an independent production company, but BBC are buying the product. He works for the BBC. But we've got to a stage where we pick and choose who the victims are and who the offenders are, because you're not allowed to have a sense of humour now in case someone's offended. Now, I'm not saying what he said is funny. It might not have been funny, but we should live in a society where you can say what you want to say. And it's not your fault if someone's offended by that. They just need to grow up and they need to get over it. But in this country now, especially the BBC and places like that, it just takes one complaint and everybody jumps on it. So this has turned into a witch hunt now for him.
Yeah.
Some of the things we've reported in saying are not very, a bit rude, but who am I to judge?
Yeah.
If we live in a society now where it's perfectly normal for two men to have anal sex.
I've not been watching that program either.
No, but it is. It's also perfectly normal for the BBC for a mentally ill man who thinks the woman to go use the toilets and strip naked in front of other females, contestants in the changing rooms.
Yes.
So all those things are normal.
Yeah.
But if a white man, because that's what he is, a white man.
He is a white man.
If a white man cracks a joke that he thinks is funny, that's a little bit risque. Don't forget he's our age, so he brought up in a time where you'd tell risque jokes. Remember Hello and comedy from the 70s. It was all double entendre and those sort of things. It takes one complaint and suddenly you've got 24 women all going, well, he said that to me. Well, if he did say that to you a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, why have you waited now to say it? If you were that offended, why did you wait?
Sykes, who was a model, she's quite nice looking, tall. Apparently, he said to her what the models eat, and she found that threatening and upsetting.
What the models eat?
Yes. So then they're all now crawling out of the woodwork with these stories. But my view on this is, if I was sitting with Greg Wallace and there was an Asian contestant, a woman, who was presenting whatever, and she walked away, and then he went, "Me so horny," I would kind of probably give a little chuckle. I wouldn't say that myself. I wouldn't think it was that particularly funny, but I would genuinely not even think about it after that. I would genuinely not even reflect on it. I just think he's got a bit of an old-fashioned sense of humour by saying that or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit offensive maybe, but I'm not that bothered. Because what he hasn't done is jumped up, ripped open her blouse, and buried his head in her breast, has he? He's not molested her. He's not raped her. He's not touched her. He's just said after she's left the room, "Me so horny," because she probably has a Thai accent or something. Yeah. So why is that an issue, or is it just me? I'm just an old fart now. I don't understand. I've reached the point now where I don't realise that I'm a toxic male.
It's the BBC, and the BBC is woke central, and you can't get away with it. And I'm amazed if it's true he got away with it for all these years.
Yeah, but the reason he got away with it all these years is nobody at the time would have minded, because they'd have been like me, they'd have gone, "Greg, you idiot! Don't be silly, whatever." Because of course it's just a joke. It's just making a joke. And this is the point I'm making. We're reaching the point now where nothing can be said without being offensive or racist or whatever, and it just needs to stop.
Nothing can be said. Yeah, you're right. Nothing can be said because somebody will always take offence.
Yeah.
We have it all the time. I have it all the time. You know, that's what microaggressions are.
Yeah.
Microaggressions is when you say something or do something that I don't like. You rolled your eyes when I was speaking. Well, that's because I was a black woman. That's why you rolled your eyes. That you can't say or do anything without upsetting the woke.
Yeah.
And the BBC is woke central.
Because what would happen if there was an Irish a Liverpudlian, a Scouser, your favourite, I know you love Liverpudlians, came on and showed her dish and then walked off, and you went, that's great, that is, after she walked off.
Yeah.
Is that the same?
Yeah.
But would you get cancelled for that? That's where we're going to go.
At the BBC, absolutely. Absolutely. That would be classed as racist. Absolutely.
Well, we've gone too far then, if that's the case.
We have, but as we know, it's beginning to swing back. It's beginning to swing back, and this fake outrage only is directed at certain people at certain times. It's a bit like our two-tier policing system. It's not evenly spread. You can look online with, Justin Bieber is.
Yes. I believe he's a singer.
He's a singer. So 10 years ago when he was younger, on stage with some other actresses and stuff like that, and they're groping him and forcibly kissing him on the neck and the face and grabbing his bum. And you can see he's really uncomfortable, and they're all giggling and laughing while they're presenting the award. If that had been 3 30-year-old men and a 15-year-old female singer, outrage. No one said a word when women were abusing a 15-year-old man. Boy, there's another clip online of this Scottish, I think it's from ITV, Scottish presenter Lorraine Kelly.
Yes.
And they're doing something on the show, and the men have got kilts, and she's picking up their kilts. Can you imagine a man lifting up a woman's skirt live on air?
And she's really woke herself as well, Lorraine Kelly.
But can you imagine the outcry? So this fake virtue signalling and offence taking is not real. It is performative, because if it was real, we would be doing it all the time to anybody who crossed lines. And we'd do it that many times that we would know where the lines were. The reason why people like him make this mistake, we don't know where the lines are, because some people get away with it, some people don't. The line's here today, the line's there tomorrow. There's no distinction anymore now, so people fall foul of it.
Yeah, but isn't it just working men's humour, that, Nick?
Yes.
What's been happening here?
Yeah.
That's what I think. This is also. I think this is a bit more sinister, because I think this is also the elites saying to working men. Yeah. Because Greg Wallace comes from he's a working man, isn't he? He was a greengrocer and all that sort of stuff. This is the elite saying to working men, you are shit.
Yeah.
And these jokes of yours are not acceptable. And it's another censorship of the working man. The ability of the working man to make jokes about women or whatever it might be, we're taking that away from you as well, you bastards, because we hate you.
Yeah.
That's what I think this is about. It's a bit more sinister as well.
No, I agree. That's why the victims are normally always a white man. Yeah. Not always, but nearly always a white man. It's an attack.
Yeah.
It's an attack on our culture and our way of life. And I know this to be true because I'm writing my 5th book at the moment called White Supremacy. And one of the chapters is about how...
I am a white supremacist.
No, it's about I know a white supremacist.
About what?
I know a white supremacist. Yeah, he's called Binzi Man. So it's a pseudonym. I didn't want to name him.
You've altered his name slightly.
Yeah, to protect the innocent. And I've got a chapter on... It's the draft title at the moment for this chapter. And it's called The Attack on White People. And that's what this is. It's another attack on white people and white culture.
Yeah.
Because anything that you deem as whiteness is actually negative, it's evil, and it's there to be attacked.
Yeah.
Did you know that there's in universities now, there's something called whiteness studies?
No, but if I was in charge, those courses would be immediately scrapped.
Yeah, so there's black studies.
Yeah.
And that's about researching everything wonderful about black people. Women's studies, everything great about women. gender studies, everything that's great about women, basically. And you've got white studies, everything evil about the white race. It's like...
And I bet the white studies lectures are twice as long as the black studies or women's studies, aren't they?
I've no idea. But I didn't even know it was a discipline.
Who goes on those? Are you forced to do it, are you? Is it part? It's one of those where you've got to do these many modules, and by the way, you've got to do white studies as well.
Possibly. I'd never heard of it until yesterday.
I would tell them to fuck off if they asked me to do that.
Never heard of it until yesterday. Whiteness studies.
I would say, I'm not going to that course. You can piss off, basically.
But again, it's all an attack on white people and white culture and the West.
I think that's the point, isn't it? It's just, we're shutting down white men and white culture day by day, aren't we? So you can't put your hand on a woman's shoulder now as a gesture for, which is an English thing to do, or whatever it might be, or whatever. You can't kiss a woman on the cheek or whatever it might be. You can't, quite rightly, you can't squeeze a woman's breasts like that, although you can have a go, but you can't do that. You'll get arrested. Now you can't say, me so horny, when a white woman leaves the room, or when an Asian woman leaves the room. Yeah. You can't, men must be petrified. White working men must be petrified. They can't say a bloody thing now.
We talked about it a couple of episodes ago about dating. That's why people aren't dating. That's why men and women aren't meeting each other apart from online. Yeah. That's why number of people in relationships is falling. Number of people getting married is falling. Because men are scared stiff.
Yeah.
How do you approach a woman? How do you approach a woman? Because if it's unwanted attention, she calls you a creep and says you're stalking her.
Yeah.
And Jesus.
Yeah.
Or,
because these are lessons for the women as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
Because you're actually teaching women how to treat men badly by things like this Greg Wallace thing.
Exactly.
So a woman who wouldn't have mind some bloke making a joke saying me sucky sucky or whatever, now will mind that, won't they?
It's flirtatious.
If it's a Scouse accent,
It can be classed as flirtatious.
Yeah.
When does a man now move in for the first kiss on a date?
Yeah.
Because if that's unwanted, you're going to get screamed at and get called a It's like, it's so hard for men now when it comes to women because we don't know what they want. We don't know how to act. They women have always sent us mixed messages.
Yes.
You look online, women are always telling men what they want. But as you get older, you realise women don't even know what they want. So as a young man, don't be listening to what women tell you they want because they don't know what they want. And we're just sending them mixed messages, and there's always that threat of, I'll have you arrested and you're a pervert. And there's men who've been extremely damaged by being clumsy on the date, and we're all clumsy on dates at the beginning when we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
But women have all the power, and societal punishment is on their side. How many women claim rape and then it's proven they lied? They don't go to jail.
No,
but if the lie would have been believed, the man might have went to jail.
Yeah.
But the women never go to jail.
Well, there was that case we talked about with the student last week, wasn't there? Where he killed himself because the woman he'd had sex with, this is my understanding of the story, may be incorrect, had said that it was unwanted.
Yeah.
And he'd been then ostracised by his peer group, basically.
If a woman said she didn't want sex when you had sex, that obviously means you raped her.
Yeah.
That's how people will interpret that.
Yeah. If we move on, we talked about James Lindsay before. I don't know who was in this episode or the previous one. James Lindsay, who I think you follow, has now decided, and I when I read this, I thought this could be me and Nick here. We've become these monsters without realising it. He's discussed the idea of the woke right, and these are people who, despite claiming conservative values, have behaviours and ideologies similar to the woke left, basically. And they have the following characteristics, Nick. An ideological rigidity, identity politics. They apply concepts like cultural or religious superiority relating to white people or people who are not brown, basically. Tactics of censorship utilise cancel culture or moral outrage to enforce their ideological conformity. and they also have moral absolution, view their values as infallible. I think I've just described you pretty much. but do you think we are woke right? Do you think we've now...
Me and you?
Yes.
No.
And these conversations? No. I mean, I'd like to think so.
He raises a good concept, because this is something I've mentioned once or twice for the last couple of years and criticised people for. And I've criticised people for using the tools of the woke. So they claim they don't like the woke.
You have done this actually, yeah.
And so I say, well, when it's someone you don't like being cancelled,
yeah,
you need to speak up for them.
Correct.
The fact you don't like them,
yeah,
shouldn't come into it. If they're being cancelled through cancel culture, we need to support them and stick up for them, because otherwise we're just a different version of the woke.
Yeah.
I've criticised people for falling into identity politics, and a good example would be when Kemi Badenoch got elected as the Tory leader.
Yes.
I was saying to people, I don't want Tories telling me how great it is because she's black and because she's an immigrant and she can talk about immigrants. I don't want to hear that crap.
That's racism.
I just want to hear that you think she's the best person for that job, and that's why you voted for her. Because people were telling me, we're going to vote for her because only she'll be able to address the migration because she's black. And it's like, can you not hear yourself speaking? You're falling into identity politics. The only thing on that list I would disagree with would be the promoting white culture.
Yes.
I would disagree with him on that, because I do that, and that's only because of the evidence I see around me that white culture is more superior than other countries around the world. And that's what the evidence says, because if you did have a superior culture, now I write about this in my book as well, the superiority of cultures and of countries changes through time.
Yes.
At this moment in time now, for the last few hundred years, it's been the Western world. It's been white people, white countries. That doesn't mean it's always going to be the same. Doesn't mean 100 years from now it might not be China's rise and it'll be yellow culture. But at this moment in time, all the indicators say that white culture is the best. You look at the flow of migration around the world. Black and brown people and yellow people are all flowing towards white countries and white-run countries. Last 200-300 years, where have all the medicine inventions come from? All technology.
You're covering this in your new book.
Yes. Who invented the modern world? Law and order, democracy. It's all white culture.
Yeah.
So therefore, I've come to the conclusion that white culture is best at this moment in time.
And has been for quite a long time, actually.
300 years, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think the evidence speaks for itself.
Yeah, of course it does.
And when they try and give examples of other cultures doing particularly well, there isn't much to see, is there?
There isn't.
Yeah. I think I was kind of tongue-in-cheek saying that. I like to think we are where we're right, but I think I am. You're right. I have seen the right using the tools of the woke left.
Yeah.
Again, to try and emphasise, and they have got to resist. I think you and I brought things in here and mentioned them, and you said no. That I agree with that because it is actually, then that person should be protected for that reason. And you're right. I agree. So hopefully we can steer away from that.
I mean, that's what free speech means. Free speech really means letting people you don't like say things you don't like.
Yeah.
Now that is the only definition of free speech that means anything.
Yeah. I want to finish on a bit of race grifting, but I just want to mention, shout out to one of our listeners, Little Kitty 22. I think I sent you this comment she'd made. We were talking about the heating allowance, and this is an example. Oh no, we were talking about the Cresta Court, about the fact that it's so hot they can...
Yeah, open the windows.
So Little Kitty 22, I think, is one of our female listeners. She said, I've lost count of the number of times I've lost consciousness because of hypothermia. She can't afford to use heating. She is severely disabled, but she doesn't get any benefits as well. And that's kind of an example of what we're talking about here, is the injustice and the two-tier immigrants to this country. Little Kitty 22 is an English woman, an old English woman, disabled, has actually collapsed and been damaged because of of coldness in her house or a fire. I don't know what her circumstances are. But just to say that we can't do much about it, little kitty, but we are aware that this is happening and we're aware of the injustice of it, I think. It's
not a big ask to ask your government to treat you better than foreigners.
Yeah.
That's not a big ask. That would have seemed like a silly statement 20 years ago. But we're trying to ask our government now, treat us better than you do foreigners.
Yeah.
Not treat us better than black people or brown people or Muslim people, because many of them will be British. I'm just saying, treat us better than foreigners.
Yeah.
And they're not.
No. And that's the thing I said before. My dad didn't say much that I kind of really admire, but one thing he did say was charity begins at home, and it really does, doesn't it? And it should in this country. Yeah, I just want to finish on I know you like the race grifters. There's a society called the North Wales Africa Society. Are you aware of that?
No.
I don't know if you remember. I don't know who they're funded by. I suspect, knowing this government, they'll be funded.
It will be taxpayers' money, council money and stuff like that. Of course it will be.
But they're basically asking for a ban on dogs in the countryside.
Yeah.
Because one black African female apparently feels unsafe in the presence of dogs.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the Welsh Parliament are considering this, but this is the latest thing. So we've now got to ban dogs from the countryside. We've banned mobile homes, as we know, because a lot of people we're now going to ban their dogs as well, because a black African woman feels slightly unsafe in the presence of dogs.
This is one of those stories that it came out in a consultation somewhere in a report. I don't think it's ever going to be looked at seriously, but it fits into the narrative of how much more do we have to change this country to make people we don't want feel better and more comfortable here. That's what we're trying to do. We don't want you here, but how can we make you feel better because you're here? Banning dogs, absolutely stupid. But it was one of those funny stories that people jumped on. But it isn't a serious consideration.
There's one more, and that Downing Street had to apologise to Hindus. I don't know if you heard.
I saw this one, Now,
this is the bit that's just insane, because they had to apologise for serving meat and alcohol at Diwali celebration. Now, Hindus eat meat and drink alcohol.
Yeah. Not the religious ones.
Not the religious ones.
Yeah.
So we've now got a situation where our top ministerial, our top government place has to apologise to Hindus for serving meat and alcohol. Now,
it should be an apology if the food was labelled as vegetarian and it had meat in it.
Yeah.
Well, you should apologise for that. That was a mistake. But putting a buffet on with meat and they don't want to eat meat, it's like, well, I want to eat the meat.
Yeah, I'll have the meat,
and we're paying for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, again, I've not got an issue with it. They shouldn't have apologised unless by mistake they allowed people to eat some of that had meat in it and they're vegetarian. I don't want to do that to people. We need to label things clearly. But no, I had an argument with my boss once. My boss was a left-wing woke idiot, and he stopped us ordering buffets with meat in it. When we had big meetings and stuff, we were going to order a buffet, or we were doing something with the community. He wanted us only to order vegetarian food, because it's better for the planet, it's better for this, it's better for that. It's not better for my digestive system.
Yeah. Did you just say I'm not a vegetarian?
It doesn't matter. I hold the budget, and we carried on trying to order meat when we could get around it. But
that's awful.
Yeah, it's like, who are you to tell other people what they can eat and they can't eat? Yeah. And same with the Hindus. They should be telling us what we can eat and what we can't eat. We should make provision for their dietary requirements, and got a problem with that. But just because you eat crap, don't mean I have to eat the same crap. If I want to eat chicken breast and chicken nuggets,
what you should have done is order some Thai food, and then as it came in, turn to me so horny. That would have been.
I might have lost the job over that one.
And on that parting bombshell, Nick Buckley. Thank
you.